Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Standing Policy Committee of Public Works to order. I'd like to welcome Councillor Chambers, Councillor Eadie, Councillor Sharma, our senior committee clerk, and members of the department who are here will come up and introduce themselves at some point, people in the gallery, and people watching live stream. So today is Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Sharma, do you want to move the minutes of the last meeting? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right. So, Mr. Clerk, we'll start with our delegations. How many do we have today?
Today we have one, and that is Councillor Duncan from the Charleswood Tuxedo Westwood Ward, to be heard with respect to reports 10 and 11.
Great. All right. All right. Let's welcome Charleswood. Welcome.
Well, good morning, committee, councillors. Thanks for hearing me out here this morning for this 5 minutes. I'll try to keep it within that 5-minute period, starting with item number 10, which is titled as a granular pedestrian path along Chalfont. For those of you who are not familiar with the Charleswood area, that street borders the western border of the Assiniboine Forest, the northern portion of the Assiniboine Forest, which is bisected by Grant Avenue. So between Grant and Roblin on the west side of the forest, there's a beaten trail that's heavily used by residents, primarily to go from what is the established Assiniboine Forest actual walkways, which is the southern portion of the forest, to the Assiniboine Park and Assiniboine Zoo, and also to connect up to the multi-use pathway along Roblin, and then further on into Winnipeg, or southerly towards the CMU, and then down Grant. So this would be a connection along the west side. Thank the Assiniboine Park Conservancy for submitting support for that. Connectivity is obviously a struggle in my neck of the woods, given that there are a lack of sidewalks. Although it is titled Granular Pedestrian Pathway, I would actually, and I thank the Public Service for giving the option to actually have it done as an asphalt surface. The price is within $90,000 there. Although the Public Service is recommending that this be received as information, I'd ask that it be referred to the 2027 budget, and that council can deliberate at that point in time. So option 2, which is the asphalt service, class 3 estimate of $665,000 for the pathway that runs from Grant to Roblin on Chalfont, on the east side of Chalfont, but the west side of the forest. Item number 11, which is the pedestrian crossing at Shaftesbury Boulevard. Again, connectivity being an issue in my ward. This is for those of you that are familiar with the end of the Hart Trail at Shaftesbury. There's a sidewalk that runs down east side of Shaftesbury, just a typical pedestrian sidewalk that goes from Grant to the intersection, which is actually Wilkes, Sterling Lyon, McCreary, and Shaftesbury. I don't know if there's many that have 4 different streets intersecting, but this is one of them. And awkwardly enough, it ends on the east side. It terminates at a bus stop there. Then what we have is people crossing over to the west side on a beaten trail, just, an unofficial trail that follows the forest, that then connects to the Hart Trail and the controlled intersection at the aforementioned streets there. And then they cross on the west side of Wilkes and Sterling Lyon, Shaftesbury and McCreary intersection. So this would allow for an identified pedestrian crossing, no signals, that would go from that bus shelter on the east side of Shaftesbury over to the west side of Shaftesbury, and then a new sidewalk would be connected. I don't know the exact length, but a short jog that would connect up to the Hart Trail and further on into the multi-use pathway that goes along Sterling Lyon east. Again, option number 1 would have that sidewalk staying on the east side, but there are several conflicts with the CN rail line there. and private property, in fact, that make that quite a bit more expensive, up into the $330,000 range. Option B is much more straightforward, as the Public Services described it in the report here. Cost five estimate of between $50,000 and $85,000. I'm open to that as an option right now. It's not ideal because it doesn't allow the traffic that's coming, pedestrian and cyclist traffic, although it's meant for just pedestrians on the east side, to come all the way south to Sterling Lion. However, I don't know how realistic it is that we would be able to easily cross the CN rail line with pedestrians and cyclists. So I'm open to, again, option B, and I'd ask that that be also referred to the 2027 budget, although the Public Service is recommending that it also be received as information. So in summary, last 10 seconds here, if the committee could please consider sending both secondary options to the 2027 budget, that'd be greatly appreciated. Open to any questions.
Okay, I see Councillor Chambers has a question.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation this morning. I note that for item number 10, there are some trees and shrubs that are to be removed.
Yes, primarily trees.
And
If
they're-
that- it's at the tight corner of Roblin and Chalfont. Because it is an informal path that's been used for years and years, the trees actually hug closer to Chalfont at the corner, so that would have to be brought back. But then along the vast majority, I would say 90% of the pathway, there would be no tree removal. So yes, the Public Service has indicated that.
Yeah,
It's
they
included
are
across.
planning to replace them too here. it
Yeah.
says.
Yeah,
What is the length of that stretch of trail?
I think it is
It's,
identified.
it does refer to the width just being, let's see, 2.4
2.4 meters.
wide. What is the length?
I want to say it's approximately a kilometer or half a kilometer between there, between Roblin and Grant.
And you're requesting asphalt.
Yeah, the asphalt, I mean, we could do gravel, but for, like I said, $90,000 more, it would be asphalt, which seems to make sense. I originally approached this as, given the rural context of Charleswood and the Assiniboine Forest, gravel would make sense there. It fits in. However, the Public Service did point out that there are several issues with maintenance on gravel trails.
Well, and that was my follow-up question. I mean, which would be, would require least maintenance, asphalt or?
Asphalt, yeah, and they do speak to eventually the snow clearing of it would be much more productive with asphalt. I mean, if you and I were building a sidewalk and it was gravel, we'd dig out a couple inches and pack her down. These guys are gonna make a base anyway that would be able to sustain a asphalt, so it seems to make sense.
Thank you.
Sharma?
Thank you, Councillor Duncan, for your presentation. These are active transportation improvements. Where do they fall into the current plan? Are they in there at all?
They are identified. The Public Service did mention in the reports that they're not the highest priority on their list right now. I respect that. However, when community is contacting a local councillor and is making it a priority, that would, to me, seem to should bump that up the list to be a priority, especially when this is nothing new. I've been discussing this with the department. I've had the pleasure of traveling out into the community with the department to identify this. Speaking specifically to the Chalfont, I've been approached by our friends at Bike Winnipeg to make this a priority as well. Again, I appreciate that the department has a priority list. I don't think we're always going to agree with that priority list.
But it is on the list somewhere.
Mhm.
And we'll talk more about that when we hear from the Public Service and that plan and how many years out we're looking at it.
If I could on that point, maybe we could get that priority list public so that we could see.
I think we share some sort of active transportation report here at this committee
Yeah.
annually.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Counselor, whenever we bring anything forward to the Public Service, we are, told that there is a list. I've never seen that list in any department. I'd be happy to discuss that publicly and maybe we can rank it all, but if not, then, by way of motion, I'm prepared to do these long overdue projects in my ward. Mhm.
Awesome, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not, okay, sorry. Counselor Edie has a question.
So along Shaftesbury, there's a number of facilities or whatever.
Yes.
Are there any like schools or other city related facilities near, like there's a bus stop there, so usually we kept bus stops where we know they're used.
Yeah.
Are there?
Yeah, if you recall, I can't remember how many months ago, came forward with the transit ask for the connection between Linden Woods and Charleswood. And this specifically would also speak to that. It doesn't necessarily address this, but it's that connectivity between the Seasons Outlet, Linden Woods Community, and Shaftesbury High School, which is right at the corner of Grant and Shaftesbury. So, and again, we have the CMU, Canadian Mennonite University, on the corner of Shaftesbury and Grant as well. So, yes, to answer your question, there are many assets that bring pedestrian cyclists there. So, yeah.
Thanks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I just want to direct everyone to the supplement budget book, page 38. So in the supplement budget book, in this last budget in 2026, the department did come forward with a breakdown of the funding for up to 2031. And as noted, we'll note this, that we know that we moved the 5.4 million forward for Wellington Crescent. We see that there's 5, 10, 11, about 12 million, $11 million for the West End neighborhood project that's may or may not happen on Sargent Avenue. I know the councillor is not keen on it, but yet I'm not sure where that's going to go. And then we have basically, we've got 3 million for the North Winnipeg Parkway. Like that will be the biggest party ever when that happens. Councillor Sharma, you've got your 1.5 million, which is phase 2, which was super high priority because you didn't have any AT, right? I don't know what the first part was, 3 or 4 million. There is 1 million every year of unallocated, it's called multi-use pathways and bike paths. So 1 million of unallocated. So, you know, I really supported the pedestrian cycling strategy to see a lot of connectivity made in the downtown where there's a lot of density and a lot of people. But what that means really is years and years to see anything connected in the suburbs or to see anything connected outside the downtown. So I think that, and I'm going to work on this with the department, but I think there needs to be a focus on some of these bits and pieces, like what's going on in Charleswood. I know Councillor Chambers, you had some bits and pieces in your area. I'm sure Ross, you've got some out in your area, bits and pieces, right?
First trail on the books.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Yeah, so there needs to be, just like there is with roads, there needs to be a bit of equity in this active transportation world with this tiny budget, which seems to be a big budget, but is still small. Anyways, I'm going to talk to the department about that. I encourage you to talk to the department about that also. I know that in the pedestrian and cycling strategies, our focus is on the downtown and it is making these connections. But there is a point where, you know, when we're dumping 15, 20, 30 million into the downtown, that we do need to consider other areas where there's missing links.
Especially you got Grand.
You know,
Those
so-
are very busy streets.
Yeah.
And Shaftesbury's quite busy too.
And, you know, we do have in roads, when they do upgrade roads, sometimes, which I don't agree with, but the method that we use is if there's a pathway that's recommended to go in on the road and the council doesn't want it, then that money does not go back to some sort of pathway world, it just stays in the road budget.
If you'd like to upgrade Chalfont as a whole from Grant to Roblin, I'd be happy to. I'll work with you on that.
Triple
Yeah,
drainage.
we can fill those ditches
Then
in
you
while
get
we're
your
at it.
pathway. Okay, so anyways, it is something that we should be looking at and discussing. Your pedestrian connection at Shaftesbury Boulevard, I'm gonna ask the department about that, and I encourage the committee at some point to look at it and see the desire lines on both sides of the street. I travel that section a lot, and many people come off of the Thundering Bison Trail in front of Fort White and they head to the forest. And that pathway, both sides of the street, something needs to be done there because it's, I mean, it's a nominal amount. I would like to have seen an AT path versus a sidewalk, but there's telephone poles on each side of the street.
My only concern with option B, it is the most, it makes the most economical sense. I don't know that I want to encourage more pedestrian crossing across Sterling Line, which it identifies.
Asper,
No, on Sterling Line.
well,
So,
it's coming anyways.
well, they're coming anyways. I don't know why there was ever a traffic signal put up there, you know, just east of the intersection, but there is. I don't know how much we want to be having more bikes come across there. So that would lead us back to option A, which does not have them crossing Sterling Line, but it is significantly more expensive. So I'll leave that with the committee. If you want to refer both to the budget and we can debate at that point in time, happy to do that. I was just looking at it from an economic standpoint of what makes more sense.
All right, okay, thanks for your presentation. Thank you very much.
Folks, appreciate your time.
No other delegations? No online? Nothing? Wow. Okay, well, let's roll. Okay, transit, welcome. Good
morning.
Introduce your team and
All right, I'm Gary Wonka, Director of Transit. I've got with me Laurie Fisher, our Manager of Finance, and Doran Radstrom, our Manager of Service Development. And item number 1 is a grant for the Canadian Urban Transit Association Fall 2026 Conference, and Laurie will lead us off.
So this is a pretty straightforward report. CUDA is holding its fall 2026 conference in Winnipeg. The dates are November 15th to November 18th. The conference is expected to have over 500 attendees and a large trade show that's attached to it. They bring a lot of buses to town. And so it's a great opportunity to showcase the city, and there will be economic benefits that will be provided to a number of businesses as a result of hosting the conference. As host city, we have been asked to provide a sponsorship in support of the conference. Specifically, we've been asked for a cash contribution in the amount of $23,000, and then additional in-kind contributions through providing free transit to conference attendees for the duration of the conference, some charter services as well to get people to the technical tours and the reception events, as well as some promotional support. So the total cash and in-kind contribution is estimated to be no more than $45,000, and transit will fund this through its 2026 operating budget. As this amount is technically categorized as a grant, and we are requesting an exemption from the transit bylaw to provide the free transit, it does require council approval.
okay. All right, do we have any questions? Councillor Chambers?
Help me here. We've held this conference here before, 2019?
We've never held the fall conference. We've held the spring, there's 2 every year. There's a spring summit and then the fall conference. We held it in, I think, 2016. And then there was another time that we held it long before that. This is the bigger one
Okay.
with the trade show, and we actually hadn't been able to host it until the expansion to the convention center happened. Now that it's there, we had wanted to host it, but then pandemic got in the way, and this is really our first opportunity to have taken advantage of the larger convention center.
I just remember bringing greetings at an event a couple of years back, and I'm sure it was CUDA.
Maybe this for
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's coming
Yeah.
here.
It is.
Very
Big
much.
fall conference is held in various cities every year.
So you said they bring in buses? Oh, really?
Showcase them.
At the trade show, there'll probably be about a dozen buses exhibited inside the convention center.
So like
Zero.
hydrogen or zero emissions, okay, yeah. So would we as council be able to attend and kind of take a look at some of these?
Yes, the trade show is open to the public,
Okay.
so anybody can come in and see that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the estimate is 500 people. Those are mostly transportation professionals.
Yeah, the library, I would guess that probably 2/3 of them work for transit agencies across the country. Then there's also all the associated businesses that work with transit agencies, the engineering and planning companies, suppliers, technical companies, people that make fare collection systems, things like that. They'll all be there as well. And then on top of that, there's all the exhibitors that are coming in as well to show their products off.
Do invitations go out to the US. I follow, what is it? International Transportation, Association, whatever it is. They have big conferences in the States all the time. Do invitations go out to those professionals in the US as well?
Yes, and I guess there's the three organizations. So CUTA is the Canadian Urban Transit Association. There's APTA, the American Public Transit Association. There's also UITP. It's United International Transport Public or International Public Transit Union. So those other two organizations they have an affiliation with CUTA, and some of their members, you know, the board of directors, president will come to CUTA, and vice versa happens as well. So they'll be here, but also transit in North America is really, you know, it crosses borders a lot with when you talk about the suppliers and the different companies. So there'll be a lot of those people coming, and some transit agencies, especially from near the border, they show up as well.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
So how many people usually go to this conference in Winnipeg? Like your folks when it's somewhere else?
The spring one, usually 2 or 3, and the fall one, generally 6 or 7.
Okay. Well, I think it's a great thing, and I think it's a great opportunity to showcase New Flyer and what we're doing in Winnipeg, and some of the opportunities and challenges that we face with transit.
I'll tell you one of the reasons why I'm really excited about it is I'm on the board of directors of CUTA and on the executive committee. So I serve as the vice chair of technical services. So I end up going to both of these conferences every year. And I get so much out of them, but the technical sessions are really valuable, but it's the people that you meet that do your job in other cities.
Yeah.
And the one thing I always come back saying is, I wish I could have brought a dozen more people with me to introduce them to the people that do their jobs. And so this is our opportunity to have it here and to make sure that everybody at Winnipeg Transit can meet their counterparts in other cities. Once you make those contacts, then when you're trying to figure something out, you phone somebody up in another city who's dealt with the situation before, and they can walk you through what they did. It's those connections that are more valuable than anything. That's the main reason why I'm excited about having this here.
And it'll be a great opportunity for the province to come and do big funding announcements in front of all kinds of buses.
Where was the spring conference?
This year it's going to be in Quebec City.
Oh,
It's
the previous
Previous one in spring, where was it?
fall.
Fall was in Toronto last year.
So the spring is coming up in Quebec.
Oh, it was in Vancouver last spring.
Okay, all right, so, any questions, further questions? If not, who's got a motion? Council Chambers?
Move the public service recommendation to approve this.
The contribution agreement with CUTA and
Yeah.
Operation. Okay, perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay,
Okay.
that's it.
Have a good
That's it. Okay, so listen, one last thing here. Do you think next month you could come with a verbal update on just lay of the land with transit? Verbal update, and I do think you've got a marketing program that's gonna get launched or something.
Yeah.
So just whatever update you've got,
Sure.
so just a verbal update would be great,
We can
because
do that.
our new season will be will be happening, and
Yep.
okay, perfect.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, good morning.
All right, you too. Okay, Public Works. Look
Good
at
morning,
this.
Chair and Councilors,
10 o'clock, and you
committee
can
members.
talk to Jim. All right,
New
hello.
record.
Ah,
You're all over, or you're
Yeah, right behind you,
I was
Council.
listening to you yesterday.
Okay,
So our first report on the Millennium Library Parkade, we're requesting a 90-day extension, and that's essentially the cost benefit is more or less ready. We received the more detailed class 1 estimate. So we're just refining that and moving that forward under the minimum 90-day extension request.
so just to recap on this, we approved the Millennium Parkade repairs. Now,
Yes, so what was decided through the budget cycle was that we provide a cost benefit analysis to demonstrate what the options are, what's still in our best interest as a city,
right,
and repair the parkade and
right,
the other 3 options. And so that's what we were directed to do. It wasn't about requesting funding to do the project.
right,
It was supplementing a cost benefit
right,
analysis.
to do a more deeper dive analysis. Remember it because I think it was, what was it, 40 million, or how much was the original price tag on this repair?
Yeah, it's like, again, there was, on our last reports, there was a number of phases.
Yes.
And the work required, you know, the complexity of the Millennium Library and the Parkade. They're sharing utilities under both sides of the facility. And essentially, the Millennium Library Parkade relies upon, or the library itself relies upon the footprint of the Parkade for structural support too as
Yeah.
well. So it's a very complex entity that the library is operated by Community Services, and the Parkade is operated and maintained by Winnipeg Parking Authority. But it's really one entity, so there's a lot of complexities to that work.
Okay, all right, okay, so can I have a motion to do a 90-day extension?
I'll move the
Counselor
extension.
Edie, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Goods Movement Advisory Committee Annual Report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report outlines the work of the Goods Movement Advisory Committee in 2025. This is a group that was set up to represent the interests of freight movement in its various forms: rail, trucking, airport, air movement of freight. They meet with the director and staff from Public Works to go over issues, talk about new development that's happening in the city, issues related to like road improvements, the economy, lots of like the scope is very wide. And we've been talking about various issues over the year. We meet regularly, like about once a month. And it's been working real well. We've got good feedback from the group. We've been talking about a lot of different issues. Over the year, we've talked about the topics such as Port of Germain reopening, the removal of vehicle traffic on Graham, the transportation master plan is obviously a very large freight movement component of that. And through talking with the Goods Movement Advisory Committee, we're making changes to how freight is handled as a topic at Public Works in the transportation division. We're looking for new staff, and that when we get that new staff, ultimately they'll be very key in working on the issues that are being raised here by this Goods Movement Advisory. I've also been talking about some of the other projects that are an outcome of the TMP, mainly the Strategic Road Network. I should note as part of the Strategic Road Network is looking at major corridors where capacity is needed. We're looking at a subset of that Strategic Road Network, which will be oriented towards goods movement, calling them Strategic Goods Movement Network. And so they're thrilled to be seeing that these upgrades and greater effort is being made to look at the movement of freight within the city.
And where are we at on that? Like, has the RFP gone out or RFQ?
We
The RFP closed, currently under evaluation, and hope to be making a recommendation for award shortly.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, and I wanted to speak to it a little more in detail at the Manitoba Trucking Association event on the Friday. So I'll contact you to get a little more info or a little more insight, okay? Okay, okay, sorry about that, Mr. Patman, continue.
No, that's fine. I'm just about wrapped up. So I'm talking about the Strategic Road Network, the Goods Movement Network, and one thing that has been brought up by this advisory committee is that they want to talk greater than just about transportation, greater than just the impact and the conflicts between trucks and other modes. They want to talk about how freight movement is important to the economy. And so we're looking at ways to work in other stakeholders within the public service into this committee, including economics and also land use. So that's it's ongoing, and we're looking at how to do that, whether to bring them in case by case on specific topics, or bring them in as like a standing member of the committee. But all in all, it's great that we have this. We sort of brought this into creation because we had other advisory committees.
Well,
We had a
yeah,
transit one,
yeah.
we had active transportation,
Yeah.
but there was sort of a bit of a blind spot in terms of freight movement. So now we've got that, and it's running well, and we're continuing to keep it moving.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the update. You've been meeting regularly,
Yep.
as you said. And I'm glad, because I think there was some discussion here a while back about political involvement in the committee, but we decided not to do that. Doesn't look like it was necessary. Counselor Lukes, you're happy with the report and
Yeah, well,
sequence of when they're meeting and,
yeah.
and how often will we be getting these reports?
I believe we just do these reports annually,
And
but of the specific topics that the Goods Movement Advisory Committee wants to bring forward, then we have that ability to get those onto the agendas.
okay, very good. I'm prepared to move to receive this information.
All right, all in favor?
I
Carried. Okay, Transportation Master Plan, progress and implementation of projects, Winnipeg Area Transportation Study and St. Mary's Road Downtown Corridor Study. So good
Yes.
studies.
Yes, thank you. One of the sort of the to-do items coming out of the Transportation Master Plan was that we would report on projects and tasks that were sort of follow-ups to that master plan. And two of the projects that came out of this was the need to do an update to our Winnipeg Area Transportation Study and the St. Mary's Road Downtown Corridor Study. The one's a very large project that impacts the whole city. We do these annually, not annually, but we need to do these reports on the travel of citizens, the public moving around the city. We do those every 10 years. We're a little bit behind the times on doing that. We should have, the last one we did was 2007, but we delayed the update to this plan because of the new BRT. We want to make sure that BRT was sort of had reached a steady state in terms of use by the public. And so we're just telling you what's happening next with these two projects. The Watts project is gearing up for the new year. We'll in 2027 we'll be launching this. We want to avoid doing like this polling of the public during the election period, during the election blackout period.
Very exciting what they're doing.
Yeah, what we do is we sample a percentage of the people in Winnipeg and we capture all trips they make in a day. So it's the trip they make to school in the morning, the trip they make home in the afternoon, if they go out to do some grocery shopping. All those different purposes you can imagine people do. We want to capture all that activity, whether it's suburban or downtown or somebody going from Winnipeg out to outside the city. By capturing a small percentage of the people, if we carefully capture all the demographics of the people, whether it's a large family, a single person, a family with elderly people in it, a family with young children in it, by carefully capturing those numbers and then using other data we have, such as from the census, such as information that the federal government has about the public, we can factor up that little tiny percentage that we capture, and we factor it up differently, knowing what's the home ownership and whether people are living in single family homes or duplexes or multifamily. We can create a simulation of the whole city, everyone who lives in Winnipeg, just from a tiny amount of people. And so that's very useful then, because by knowing what the people do, how they travel, when they travel, if they travel long distances versus short distances, we know what's going on in the city. And that helps us make decisions as the population keeps growing. So typically you do that every 10 years because people's habits change. You get better transit, people will use transit more. You get new expressways or new highways built in the city or congestion in different parts of the city. It changes how people travel, whether they travel in the morning or the afternoon or, induced demand is part of that too. So we need to do those updates to updates to that data so we can put that data into our models, how we can forecast what's going to happen 10 years, 20 years down the road. So it's an exciting thing. It's something that it's very specialized, very challenging work. So there will be the need to work on those surveys, get that data from external, like use a consultant to help us with that, because it's not work that we do very often in the city. But city staff learn from working with these consultants how to do this, and it builds their skill set. So that between the 10-year intervals, we can work with the models and it stays as fresh as we can keep it. So that project is set to launch. We've also got the St. Mary's Downtown Corridor. That's a small study, and it's also a very interesting study because what we're trying to do with that project is make improvements to improve the capacity on that corridor going in and out of the downtown, but not widen it. the corridor is very constrained. There's development very close to the edges of the corridor. There's schools, there's residential, there's retail. If we just say widen the corridor, we're gonna blow a ton of stuff up, and that would be really not gonna work too well. So we're looking for solutions that are gonna be supportable by the community, but also improve, like optimize the capacity that's there. It may be something like we say, we're gonna make one lane a dual, like bi-directional, like we'll make it so that in the morning it's say inbound, in the afternoon it's outbound. We formally had that in Winnipeg. Other cities like Calgary have this on certain bridges. That might be our solution. We might do something with rapid transit, but we're looking for like sort of innovative ways to use the existing right of way as best we can. So the council is very eager to get this project off the ground. We've been working on coming up with the scope of it, getting the RFP ready, and that's ready to launch really soon. So just updating these projects, they are underway. We're not putting them on hold. We're not postponing them. It's going to take time to get them going.
Councillor Wyatt or Councillor Edie?
What?
I'm
Did I hear?
reading something here, so.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess we'll never
yeah.
see St. Mary's Road, we'll never see a sky train going down there. 'Cause that's probably the only way to get rapid transit really down St. Mary's Road, but I just wanted to make that comment, but so when you're studying the flows and all that stuff and induced demand, so let's say, you know, you do the Chief Peguis Trail and so you know, the concept part of that is we're not doing that, but I'm just using an example. So you bring in induced demand, but are you measuring the effects on, so with Chief Peguis, or would you be measuring or looking at the effects? Like the idea is to get a bunch of traffic off of Leela Avenue for those who are going out further west.
Yeah, the models that we have are intelligent enough that when you make improvements to one corridor, it impacts the flow on other corridors. We don't just look at one corridor in a vacuum or in isolation. We look at it as part of a network. And so with big areas like this, when you're modeling it, what you want to do is you run a model and you allow the little individual artificial vehicles in the model, the artificial drivers, to make choices on what's the best route for them. And that induced demand is part of that. So when you add new capacity, it takes off, it moves people from one route to another because that route is now better than the other when it wasn't before. And so you do those calculations and then you repeat those calculations with the people using the new decisions. You run it until it reaches a new equilibrium. And that's sort of like, that's how these models work. You calibrate them by running them repeatedly, and the calculations build up and you keep repeating them until you've reached a steady state. The model will tell you, this is now how it will be. And then we can say, okay, yeah, there's a change that's happened. It's not just, we do like one guesswork calculation on the back of an envelope and say, do this, and it works out. It's loads of calculations. It's complicated matrices being calculated to figure out what's going to happen when you make changes to the network.
Okay, do you have any other questions? No, I do. Let me just ask here. So in the report, you are highlighting that you're going to be reporting back in March, but I guess that's, when are you coming back with the goods movement study? You've got the public service be directed to report back by March 2026 with a prioritization and funding strategy for implementation of the goods movement study, including the proposed route truck
Yeah.
network.
The goods movement study ran into some delay because of some issues we had with the update to the truck route network. We've got an extension on that. I believe we're coming back in a few months now, but I will check up with staff on what the timeline is for that.
We gave you an extension?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess the proposed truck route network, when do you think that's coming back?
I'm hoping it's by the end of June. Because there was at least one corridor where we were talking to the area councillor because the recommendation from the consultant that we worked with on the TMP had said, move the corridor from this corridor for a parallel route
Right.
to have more capacity. The councillor said my residents don't want to see that change made. So we've got the report, we're just going through all the edits that we want to make to the consultants,
Right?
like recommendations. So
Okay.
it's very close to being done. There's
Okay.
nothing wrong with it, but we're just going through those details to be able to explain why it's a yes or a no on
Sure.
the different cards.
Maybe an underpass is a good reason.
That's part of it.
I think
That's
a
an
pretty good
element,
reason,
yes.
But, okay, now you've got here, the public service be directed to report back by May with a funding strategy for development of the curbside management strategy.
Yes,
So that's not really immediately you folks, it's parking.
that
No,
us
no,
and
that-
talking authority, we're working together.
So through the chair and to the committee members, there's definitely a misconception on how curbside management should be looked upon as a city as part of land use and everything else. So for some reason, in our organization or somewhere along the lines, we've looked at the enforcement aspect of the outcome of curbside management as leading that initiative. And that's a transportation-led initiative, not a WPA.
Not an enforcement line.
No, 100%. So the pieces that have been missing over a number of years, and they were all articulated through the Transportation Master Plan 2050 and identifying that those gaps. And so part of what council in their, in a very positive fashion said, hey, listen, you've got a number of items here. We want you to report back in so that we're kept current on where you're headed and what the associated staffing requirements and costs are. So each one of these, whether it's goods movement, whether it's curbside management, they're requiring resources as well. So that funding strategy, because generally you don't say curbside management strategy with the funding strategy, right? With a direction on funding. But what are our next steps on that? So that report that's coming back identifies next steps and some of the resources required that we need to implement to make those next steps in that funding strategy make sense. So it's not, the funding strategy isn't the curbside management strategy. So it's how we're gonna get there. And so it's not just a small thing. And in our whole planning and land use concepts, curbside management is a vital key role in that storyline. And so it's not been looked upon exactly that way. And that's what, as a city, we're strategically trying to get there. And so one of the things is that with council adopting the TMP 2050, it didn't come with the resources required. So what we're doing is breaking those down into manageable bites to be able to build ourselves capacity to manage this and prepare it. So I think that's coming through next month.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the question too. Okay, got it. Okay, then you've got stuff for December. We won't worry about that for now. Okay, this is good. Okay,
It's a start.
yeah. Okay, so any questions or motion?
I move the recommendation.
Okay, all right, perfect. All in favor? Carried. Number 5, award of contract for 2026 downtown pavement renewals.
Yes, so because of the value of the contract, we require Standing Policy Committee on Public Works concurrence for this. So Andrew will go over the project and some of the positives that we see in some of those other discussions about active transportation in the downtown that you had mentioned earlier this morning. And so go ahead, Andrew, provide a summary.
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so as mentioned, this is a report for the award of contract for the 2026 downtown pavement renewals. The locations in this contract include St. Mary Avenue, Edmonton Street, and Kennedy Street. So the report recommends the award of the contract to Darko Group Limited, who was the lowest qualified bid in the amount of $12,623,377. The scope of the work includes namely a reconstruction on Edmonton Street from Broadway to Portage. There is a short segment of rehabilitation in the last block leading up to Portage. St. Mary reconstruction from Memorial to Edmonton. Both of those two locations incorporate bike lanes. And Kennedy is a major rehabilitation from Ellis to Balmoral. We are excited about this project because we're able to leverage some more current policy related to center plan. We're incorporating some philosophies from center plan into these projects, including enhancing pedestrian realm with some wider sidewalks, some tree plantings, and where feasible, and also some enhanced pedestrian level lighting on certain corridors. We're also excited to be working with True North on the Portage Place redevelopment project to align the AT corridor on Edmonton, so that we can create ultimately an active transportation corridor that will go from Assiniboine all the way to Central Park. Not entirely as part of this project, but through our coordination with True North and some other projects.
Just to be clear, so that's Edmonton, that's where the opening is between buildings.
Correct.
Over.
Yeah.
So, we already have a project in there. I don't think we're bringing motor vehicle traffic through there. It's active transportation, right?
So they are incorporating a single lane of vehicle traffic through that corridor, because they have, as you are likely aware, they're going to be incorporating a new clinic into the space east of Edmonton. So they need some pickup drop off for that site. So we're coordinating the design of the AT through that area with their pickup drop off area, and to make sure that it's a uniform design.
Well, that's a one-way heading north then, right? And
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So any questions? Any other questions?
The acceptance of the Darko Group bid for
Okay,
these roadworks.
okay. All right, that's the motion. So all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Road safety improvement budget increase for Jefferson Rail Crossing project, item number 6.
Yes, thank you. The city is upgrading the rail crossing on Jefferson east of Dr. Jose Rizal Way. The stop signs that are there now will be replaced with a modern rail warning system with flashing lights. As per signed developer agreements, the city has collected monies up front from developers to help fund these upgrades. We have funds in the amount of $244,894, and they're currently in the future services account. Council approval is needed to draw upon these funds. This will increase the 2026 Public Works Road Safety Improvement Program capital budget by this amount. The total cost of the upgrades at the crossing is $562,689. The remaining amount will be covered by the Road Safety Improvement Program approved budget. The project can only start once we've got these funds transferred.
Okay, I'm just looking up here. Any comments on this?
Lot of traffic.
And that Dr. Jose Rizal Way in Jefferson.
It does take time. Councillor Eddy was just commenting, it's taken a bit of time because we need to correspond with the railway.
Yeah.
And how many locations around the city are waiting for this kind of treatment? Do we have an idea?
I've got the list.
What's that?
Someone sent me the
There's
list.
a bit of a list, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, is there a ranking or analysis that needs to be done on?
Yeah, they get sort of ranked based on the cross product of number of trains that go through and the number of cars that go through, so that the sort of the seriousness of the magnitude of the improvement is needed, as well as the sort of how long they've been there, and if they're wearing out and need to be replaced. So we do track them and do monitor them, but locations where what was previously there is now no longer acceptable. Like when this was built, the traffic volumes are very low, but there was no need to upgrade them at some point. We're now at that point where the upgrade is going to happen. However, sort of complicating that is that the railroads are sort of that they have the final say on these improvements. And so they'll say, we're now ready to go ahead with this. And we want you as the city to comply with our requirement. So they'll say, we'll do this one next year, we'll do this one a year from now. Often they give us very short timelines, so we can say that something's needed and we sort of are planning for it, but the railroad sort of says, we're gonna go ahead now. And so they also will say, we're in charge of the construction of this. We'll help facilitate it, we'll help do the details on the city side, but the railroad is really calling the shots on this. And that's just the historic way that it's done throughout Canada. It's not like a special thing.
Departments work on this, David. We've spoken about this for a few years now. There's been a lot of feedback through 311. We receive feedback and we passed it on to you.
Yep.
Is this a staggered approach? Like, are we doing one of the sections first and then doing the other? We're doing it all at once, do you know?
We're at Jefferson, and that'll be done. They're usually done in concurrence. So they're not activated until it's fully complete.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'll be done all at once. There'll be a bit of a detour figured out.
Yeah, that the city side of the work will include having to do the messaging, saying that this location is closed right now. Find an alternate route. We'll make recommendations, make sure there's social media messaging on it and it's
So we
communicated.
do the messaging.
Yeah.
About how long the closure will take place.
Yeah, we coordinate with the railroad, so it's not just surprises or unknowns going on. More like a construction season, like they'll try and do it as quickly as they can. They don't want to be there longer than they have to because it's costing them to get it done, but.
What's the rough amount of time for something?
It depends, like there's totally different type of rail crossing treatments. This is getting upgraded from a stop sign to signalizing crossing. So a lot of the work is done without any impact to the traffic, maybe reduce speed or one lane type of thing. If there was a requirement where the road configuration has to change, those are generally closures that happen on a weekend, and that's coordinated with the rail company.
Yeah.
And that's all dependent on them. The majority of the work in preparatory doesn't require a road closure till you get to certain aspects. I think the crossing, we may have to do some asphalt improvements there as well. That crossing is nowhere near the condition that many others in the city. But with the rail requirements and the stop gates and that, because we don't have that there may be a change to the grade in conjunction with the work that we do with the, I believe this is CPKC.
How many, that's the Arborg line. How many trains are use that every day?
The frequency on
Is
that
it as
one?
busy as the Winnipeg Beach line or? Is
No, I don't believe so. I don't have the numbers in the report for frequency, but the beach lines runs almost daily, right? So I don't believe so.
Is design work done? Like, does it need to be done?
Yes, yeah, they will prepare drawings and the drawings will have the details
Who
of
does that, us or the CP Rail?
CP. They'll have a consultant do it. There's rail consultants that do this work that are sort of like the preferred contractors by a railway company. They'll send them out, they'll survey it, they'll capture the data on it and provide the drawings.
Very good, thank you. I appreciate the work. There's been a lot of work on this file and I know we want to move quicker often. But here it is and the community will be pleased.
Yeah, and as we move forward on this, we'll keep everyone updated. If there's news or something we can share that
Thank you.
it's gonna go ahead, then we'll pass it along.
Councilor Chambers?
Yes, late last year, members of council met with former MP Lloyd Axworthy, who is working on rail relocation. How much of what we have here is done in consultation with his group in the sense that we're not working on intersections that potentially will go
Just
away?
throw away, yeah, I can see that being considered.
So first of all, through the chair, there hasn't been a final report come back on any type of recommendations and any recommended use. There's been concepts and ideas. Regardless of when that comes through and what those concepts are,
We still gotta do the.
there's a long term in the interim. This is a safety required measure, not so much a nice thing to do.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention in that meeting, Mr. Oxworthy referred to, they're really focusing on that CPR line that comes south through Naperville, crosses, Fermor and Marion and all that. They're focused on that, looking at moving that one. It's a top priority. The
Again,
final report's not there.
through the chair, Counselor, yes, a number of considerations that are conceptual in design. And there's ones in the west side of the city there that they're also considering. But again, we are a ways away from that bringing through with change in funding.
Okay, Councillor Chambers?
That's it.
Okay, so, when I look, we're talking road safety in this file here. So I see that we've got 425,000 set aside for road crossing and railway crossing improvements. I'm trying to recall, when the province cut the budget for road safety, what year was that?
That was a 2025 budget.
Right.
That was a strategic infrastructure basket funding
Yes.
dedication.
Yeah. So we don't have to do it now, but I'd like to have an update on what the road safety team is working on. We've got 2.3 million of to be identified projects. So I'd like to know what they're working on this year, what the plan is.
We're working, we do an annual update on what the road safety group is working on. That's, I believe that comes out later this year. I know they're working on that report right now.
Yeah, we would send that, we would distribute that to all the council because that's a direct impact to anybody that had projects that may need to be deferred.
So when is that report coming forward?
Usually September.
September.
Yeah, if but there's nothing wrong with us if we have the updated file. For some reason, I thought we had a list of.
We had an Excel spreadsheet that we shared with the chair
I'll
on
take care of
impacted projects that's being sort of,
Right.
these ones are now on the bulk type of thing.
Right.
I'll take care of that.
Yeah.
I'll get that
Changed
out to everybody.
percolated up to something else, okay.
The issue with the rail projects is that because the rail projects are almost being made a decision level
I
beyond
know.
the city,
I
we
know,
continue to maintain the funds for them to keep them moving.
I know. Okay, all right, okay, so, could someone make a motion then? We'll move this one along.
Of course, I will move this, that we concur in the recommendation of the public service, Madam Chair.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Number 7 is the pedestrian scramble pilot.
Yes, the public service is requesting an extension of up to 90 days on this.
Sure.
What we wanted to do was make sure that we had the project run for a year
Right,
and capture data from the public and do a survey that's being completed. And so once that's completed, we will report back.
and you'll remember this, folks, this is the King Street and Bannatyne Avenue. For those of you listening. All right, can we have a motion, please?
So moved, man.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Traffic study on Evelyn Reese Boulevard. Okay, so this is great. We have a 13-page report.
Yes, so the public service was asked to take a look at Evelyn Reese Boulevard. We studied the area. We noted that the number of vehicles and speeds on the corridor are consistent with the street type and function of Evelyn Reese Boulevard. We didn't see a pattern in collisions that suggested there was a need for a review of the safety and like major traffic calming improvements. We saw low demand at some of the locations. It's the pedestrian movements, so we're not making recommendations for pedestrian crossing control. But we did see there was a need for ground mounted pedestrian crossing control at Jack Ryman Drive. We know that in the future, there's going to be there's a proposed recreation center that's on the books or being considered. If built, this would change the conditions in the area. There'd be more traffic, there'd be more pedestrian activity, there'd be more people riding their bikes to and from the location. If that center goes ahead, we will obviously not let it be wanting. We will come back and take a look at the improvements at that time.
Okay, any questions? I guess I have a question. So when I look on the June 25th original motion from the Real Community Committee, you know, basically, like many motions for speed compliance and safety risks are supposed to go through a process that goes through 311.
Traffic calming.
Yeah, there's a process we're trying to encourage everything to funnel through.
Right.
That takes a look at, is this sort of so serious that it needs us to jump on looking at it? Usually we'll queue them up and get them into a.
So I didn't miss one going to that.
Okay, because you at committee approved this to have a specific study, not to go to that process. July 3rd, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
again, well,
No, that's fine. That's good. Okay, good. So do you have a motion to move this one?
I will move the public service
Okay.
recommendation to be received as information.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Traffic study on Bismarck's.
Okay, this one's slightly different. We were asked to take the public services director to look at adding stop signs on Bismuron Street to address speeding concerns. We took a look at that and it came.
Okay, so,
yeah.
so right away, then I guess because we approved it, I'll probably go back and.
same July 3rd, yeah,
Similarly.
same date.
But we note that stop signs should not be used in this manner. That's something we say, don't do it this way. There's a recommended way to do traffic calming. It's not using stop signs because if there's not a need for them, people start ignoring them and then blow through them. And that makes it more problematic in other locations where the stop signs are warranted. So what we said instead, we sort of said, let's shift this from just doing the stop sign solution to using the council approved traffic calming program. So we've moved this project into that program. We've started work on it, so it's going through that process to look at maybe there's another solution that's better than just using the stop sign. And so I believe that my staff are talking with your council about that. We're talking with the public. We're working through it. Yeah.
Okay,
What section of Demuron?
Yeah, this was from Blenheim down to Regal, so the very southernmost section.
Oh, to read. Okay.
Yeah.
so, you were gonna get back to me. I don't think we need a motion on it, Mr. Patman, but you were gonna get back to me on what was going to be required to accelerate some of these.
Yeah, my staff are taking a look at that. They're putting together some notes, some speaking notes, maybe like a mini briefing note type document on that, just to talk about this is the current status of this.
Just so the committee understands, so we get many calls for traffic calming. We don't know what's happening with the 30-40K thing, that won't happen, whatever, for 2 or 3 years, whatever falls out of it. In the meantime, we get these calls and there's a waiting list of,
The waiting list is like over a dozen locations, and they get added to at the rate of about 3 or 4 a year. Yeah, we only like do 1 or 2 a year in terms of responding to them. So the rest is going faster than we can release them.
So this is the section that leads to the Windsor Park Golf Course and the St. Boniface Golf Course. Is that right?
Yeah,
That's right, the golf course is the south end and the
Lots
east
of-
of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's right at Regal.
There's a lot. I actually use that to go cross country skiing in the winter, so. Anyway, okay.
okay, so, that was that. Okay, so let's move on to the next, report. Granular
We
pedestrian,
move that?
oh, did we not move
Yeah,
that
no,
one?
no.
Sorry, a motion to,
Move the
accept the public service
recommendation of public
recommendation.
service.
All right, Counselor Edie, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Number 10, granular pedestrian pathway along Chalfont.
Yes, so the delegation this morning, the council did a great job of talking about this project. I needed a very good overview. The corridor that we're looking at is approximately 1 kilometer long. It's just over 1 kilometer. We were asked to take a look at it being a granular path, and that's why that's the title of the project. But we recommended that it be, rather than granular, use asphalt to make it easier to do snow removal on. That the surface stays consistent. It doesn't have to be continually like replaced. So we've got to look at this. We've got the costing. 575,000 class 3 estimate for granular crushed limestone surface and 665,000 for a pathway home using asphalt. We have noted that there are some, there will be the need to take away some trees. We would work with our colleagues in parks on that. When we take out trees, generally we replace them. We try to replace it with more trees than we take out. We know that you can't, when you have like a goat path, just a dead path, there's a difference between that and doing something that's constructed. It's gonna be wider, has more impact. We see that there's merits to it. It's not a project without merit. It's just that when we say something is a high priority versus a low priority, there's multiple factors that go into that. Generally, the closer you are to the downtown, the more people are going to be using it. So when a suburban area, probably fewer people will be using it, but there's still merit to it. So we've identified the costs. We've identified that we will get to it at some point. The council has said, can we get this onto the budget? That's his prerogative. We're just providing the information right now.
Any questions?
Sorry, this is,
Shall,
this isn't the option A, B,
no,
No,
no.
it's
report 11.
So when you have, I totally hear you on the downtown, more people using it, but when you have a destination that actually now, I don't have the numbers, gathers more people than the Forks, Cinnabon Park gathers more people than the Forks, how does that weigh into it?
So there's a number of factors. So
Further to that,
well,
in case you wanna, can I just jump on that?
sure.
Further to that, I wanna know about the pedestrian and cycling strategy. And how things fit into that document. We have a plan
Yeah.
around what we're rolling out when.
Yeah.
Councilor Eady's been waiting for the Northwest Winnipeg Parkway, and I understand this is important
It's in the
too.
budget.
We heard from the councillor of the area.
Yeah.
We have deficits in Northwest Winnipeg to get onto the main network downtown.
Yeah, well, it's all listed in the report,
Yeah.
read the report.
Right.
I was gonna say the pedestrian cycling strategy document is the place.
To the budget process.
Yeah.
We can certainly
Yeah.
do that. There's a process for that.
Yeah.
But we're sort of circumventing the whole
Plan
plan as well.
Well, through
Because I've
the,
been waiting for sidewalk on Leland Avenue.
Yeah.
for About
Big
8
motion,
years and
put
you're.
it in the budget process. I really think that, well, I know we've got the
Sidewalk, yeah.
pedestrian plan, I know we've got it. We're dumping millions and millions and millions into downtown, which is great, which is the plan. But I do think we have to look further into these suburbs,
so
like
through
the
the,
sidewalk.
just to summarize,
Things are near to school, et cetera, community center,
Yeah.
Murray Road on Donan, we waited forever for that one.
Yeah,
And so I'd like to, we want to support all areas, including this one, but what's the plan? And where's the most deficit, that gap map, the heat map that you like to look at,
Yeah.
Madam Chair? I want to have some details around
well, it's
that.
in the plan, it's all in the,
Yeah.
how many, 300 pages?
Yeah,
It's all in
there's-
there, there's heat maps and everything.
and when you,
It's all in there, and I'm not pouring over just that document. There's a lot of things to look at, so
Okay,
I want
well,
to have a
She
discussion.
doesn't wanna read it, you tell her.
Well,
we'll send the prior,
No, you want me to know that, so you're the chair here, I'm just saying simply.
I go to that
Dive
document.
into each report.
Yeah.
But I want to have these conversations because we want to support Charleswood, we want to support all the areas that have a deficit in the
Yeah.
city. But there are things that have been sitting on the books, like the Leela's sidewalk gap, and Mr. Patman's nodding for quite a long time.
so through the chair, to the committee
Strauss,
members,
screwed up on that,
the,
so you know.
there's,
There could have been a sidewalk in 1999.
Okay, let's listen.
sure, there can be sidewalks everywhere, and for many different reasons, those sidewalks aren't being built. Are we gonna twin Leela out that way down the road? If the answer is yes, or what improvements we're making at Pipeline and Leela that change the configuration of a sidewalk, that when we say we don't have access, we have access on the south side, we don't have access on the north side. And then the amount of population that's taking that pedestrian access on a daily basis. So when we talk about the gaps in the corridors and the gaps in the network, regardless of whether you're in a high poverty area or the downtown, there's a number of criteria that was looked upon to create the pedestrian and cycling strategic map, which identified primary networks, secondary networks. It identified multi gaps in our sidewalk network and how we needed to look at it. whether it was a mixed-use corridor, it was a transit location, high poverty areas, how it's land use, whether there was truck routes in the vicinity. That was very well developed and thought out in the pedon cycling strategy update that was attached to the transportation master plan. Now, as part of that, just focusing solely like the big strategic networks that are really need, that we really need that contiguous improvement is North Winnipeg Parkway. I know that there's been a lot of work and a lot of preparation on that. We have the Northwest Hydro Corridor. We've got that next phase being built this summer. Really excited about that further connection to the south on the Northwest Hydro Corridor. When we look at areas like this, and when we talk about the gaps in our network, Chalfont is a gap. And the reason why it's a gap is there is no pedestrian access on either. It's a roadway with ditches. It's again, a rural profile, and there's a walking path that people are utilizing, okay? And so what the councilor's saying is, I want to close that gap. And so where does that gap lead you to? And that gap, when you can see the whole network and moving forward off of through Roblin and Grant, there is a connection capability there that ties into many different pathways. And again, the next report will be a similar discussion. Now, where are we at in our prioritized list? That's our pedon cycling action plan for each year. And there's budgeted items at the budget detail sheet. I think Councillor Lukes, the chair, raised that this morning. That here's the list and itemized a few that are in our queue and in our priority. But as per what the chair had said, regardless of where we are in our community, we shouldn't ignore where we have gap opportunities. And when we talk about the priorities, this is a priority network in that area. It's not a low volume. It's not for not to be considered. It's considered a priority network as part of our mapping in the pedon cycling strategy. And it does check the boxes on the criteria for short, medium, and long term. That doesn't say the projects in Councillor Sharma's area or Councillor Eadie's or Councillor Chambers should take any backseat to that. That's not up to us to decide. We're providing where we can achieve this work and where we're trying to close gaps. But as council, it's up to 2/3 of you to decide that's okay. So if somebody moves it to budget process as per the chair, then it's up to you as council and committee to decide where you're headed with that priority. Now, we have hundreds of priorities. We only have a certain amount that are currently funded based on a lot of history and legacy funding. When we talk about, for example, the North Winnipeg Parkway, one of the stumbling blocks for years, as the Councillor Eadie would know, is the acquisition of property to make that crossing at the Harry Lazarenko Bridge effective. There's a lot of key pieces. The Churchill to Togo.
Can I, first of all,
Well, just so Debbie understands that, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure
We
that
understand.
I understand that,
yeah.
but in the priority list, there is this in the current priority that our department.
That you don't have a 1 to 10.
no, and if we had a 1 to 10, they all sit in categories or kind of categories, and where the opportunity presents itself, we try to take advantage of that. So I know people were saying earlier today that they may not necessarily be satisfied with the road renewals and piggybacking off of segments of AT network, but we do try to take advantage when we're doing projects in that area. Chalfont is a chip seal roadway with a rural profile. I don't see that changing in the near future. So I really don't.
I have some very important questions to ask, Madge.
Okay.
First of all, it's not 2/3 regarding AT pass, Madam Speaker. It's a majority. It's 2/3 that's probably running on a piece of parkland, which is the Assiniboine Forest, right, or whatever. Anyway, so couple things I wanted to ask. One is, in the Charleswood area, Tuxedo Charleswood area, Are there any AT projects happening this year or next year, year after?
We've been looking at this Shaftesbury storyline for a couple of years, and as well the Chalfont connection.
We looked at the Shasbury one back in the Klein days.
It's been around for quite a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second,
What about
very,
the Hart Trail? Did you do
Yeah, the Hog Trail,
Trail?
we're looking at that as well. That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
second, very important question. Mr. Bill Clement, back in the early 90s, right? There's that, has all the money that was put aside in a local area charge related to managing traffic, which also includes pedestrians and bicycles. Is there any money left in that fund?
That's
Well,
a
that's
question
the
for
road fund.
finance.
That's
Yeah,
only for
like.
roads. It's only for roads.
Yeah, at the time, they didn't identify active transportation in that.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's still related to traffic. Well, that area charge was to deal with traffic issues all around there. This is talking about connecting, all the way down to the CN or whatever, right? So, which is a central part of why Bill established this area charge. So, I don't see how it would violate this because it's all about traffic in Charleswood. Okay. So, I don't want to debate that. That's a possibility of funding that should be looked at in the budget process.
Yeah, I have no concerns with anything you said there, Counselor.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, Madam Chairperson. So, Council, thanks.
Just the Hart Trail, could you elaborate what's being done there?
Well,
Because
well,
that's
the
very
Hart-
well used.
Yeah, the Hart Trail, well, this is what the councilor's doing is that creating a contiguous connections to the Hart Trail to the Assiniboine Park essentially. And as well the rest of the community. Yeah, so the Hart Trail, the only two things that are going on in the Hart Trail right now is a request for consistent measures at the crossings at key north south roadways. And the other piece is provincial, and that's the which the council recommended for seeking support on, and that's a crossing from the Hart Trail over the perimeter to the Grand Trunk
But
rail.
is there any asphalt or chips?
No, they don't want it. They want it gravel.
But there was some work we did in terms of the gravel on the Hart Trail, didn't we?
No, just maintenance. No, nothing changed there. No.
Okay, I'm prepared to move this out to the budget process. For the counselor, I'm prepared to do that, and I want to make sure that the public service is looking at the gaps that we've discussed for many, many years, and a couple of them are in my ward, so I want some updates on those. I'm not always the one moving motions. We're working collaboratively with the public service across various departments, but we still want action on some of those items.
Yeah,
Or I guess I should bring my motions forward too.
you
No,
can.
But we're asked often, Jim, and you've said this, Mr. Director, at this committee, and Councillor Lucas, you have as well, that motions are sometimes bogging down our public service. So there's a bit of a balance when we bring motions forward and when we work through our system.
Yeah.
So I'd like some updates on the things I've been.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the Northwest Hydro Corridor, as long as, and if Hydro's listening or their lawyers are listening, there's just some minor fine tuning needed to be done to that agreement. But the target is that we're tendering that next phase of works. I think we're targeting May 4th. We'll have an award early June. It's a 60-day time frame of work. We'll have that next phase completed by this fall. Really exciting. And again, opening up an area that's really limited to active transportation in Northwest Winnipeg. I'm just as excited about that North Winnipeg
And
part.
thank you, I'm hearing.
And all of Lord Soccer West, the Lone Community Committee boards are quite excited that finally get finished.
Thank you. And I'm hearing that update for the second time.
Mhm.
We've spoken about it previously, so
Yes.
thank you. It is a little bit overdue, though. It should have been in the ground probably when the snow melted. But
Well, wasn't that a hydro thing, a hydro issue?
Yeah, like, again, if everything lines up and we get that approval from Hydro, we've timed it well and I shouldn't say we're crossing our fingers because we all believe we're all working together on a positive solution. But
our department, there's been a delay there, no doubt, just like there was a delay for the first phase, right? To the point where we had to do verbal reports here monthly. I just want to remind everybody. Okay?
Yeah.
So I'm aware. I want to be collaborative. That's my nature. But by no means are my eyes closed on when we do. Yeah, it is my nature to be collaborative, Councillor. But I know.
It's because you scare me.
But you know what?
don't think you're supposed
We're
to.
excited it's happening, but it's been delayed. Okay? And yes, it's true, as you just said. So back to the matter in front of us, I'm
Moving to
gonna
refer
support.
to the budget,
refer to
2027.
SPAT process as well
Yes,
after the general election, so
yes.
move it up to the. budget
Okay,
process.
all in favor?
Is that,
2027 budget,
Carry.
yeah,
did I hear concurrence then that
Yep.
you're all running for the next election after
Yeah,
that
we're all
statement?
running, you're gonna run.
I didn't hear that.
We're all gonna have a big party. Okay.
you're running, Jim.
Item number 10, the
Running out the door.
Shaftesbury. Honestly, I think this is.
I'd like to move the same motion for report
Yep.
11. So actually, this one is scarier for me because
Yeah, 100%.
So
There-
just before we go to item 11.
Yeah.
In item 10, did we discuss whether or not to go granular
No,
or?
if it ever makes the budget, they can.
it'd be part of the budget.
Yeah. The recommendation, and what we considered as well is that it would be a surfaced pathway.
Yeah, the restaurant.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Rob.
Well, I was gonna move the same recommendation for report 11. I think this one has a higher priority. There's a lot of,
Yes.
that's like, I can't believe we haven't helped with that one.
Yeah, it's a
you know.
really big gap, like both sides of the Shaftesbury are gravel. And it's small, like it's tiny, but it's so used. It's actually really unbelievable how much it's used. I'm there an awful lot. My stepdad's in the home beside there and I'm amazed at how many people bike across and use it. I mean, ideally, I would love to see an AT path, but we've got hydro towers, hydro poles on both sides. I don't think we could fit one in. Could you fit one in on the north side?
Well, there's possibilities, but it requires some utility work too.
Utility work or implications to the park. Like
Yeah.
if we were able to push the bush line back a little bit, then you might be able to
Yeah.
open up and there's implications there as well.
Yeah. It's just so used. Okay, so anyway,
A lot of
you're
the
moving that.
bicycle lobbies spend a lot of time down there at the university or at the, anyway, sorry.
You're moving this to.
So I moved it
the budget process.
to refer it to the 2027 budget process.
Budget process. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, can I just, I just wanted a little bit of new business, just a question for the director on the status of the tenders going out for road construction. Can we do that?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor? Carried.
Got the right guy at the table right now.
Okay, so, I would like it, if it's possible, for you to provide us, and I didn't give you a heads up, and maybe you can't, and that's okay, you can just email. I would like to have you send me what we estimated to go out for road projects, you know, when we bid them, when we put them on the RFP, what we bid them at, or what's estimated, what they've come in at, and how many are left to go out.
So there's, and again, I don't know if you have that, you have the email, how many are left to be tendered? We had a couple closed just, last couple days as well. There's not many left to go.
Yeah.
And the other piece is that when we talk about, and this is public, so making sure that the public hears this. When you do an engineering estimate of that work, that's
Yeah,
for
people always.
okay, well, just to make sure, because there's this impression that for whatever reason, there's all this money on the table that will open up a plethora of additional work. And that's not the case at all. And I wish there was never such thing as an over expenditure in any project, but that hasn't happened in the 40 years I've been in this business. So when you're uncovering work, there's always something additional to that process. And so we have kind of like a fiduciary responsibility to manage the dollars that we have in the regional and local programs. So right now what we're seeing is kind of what we thought we would see. In other words, what we had planned as estimates, we're kind of seeing it in that target range. Some are lower, some are higher. We just recently had probably a couple projects that are on the higher side that really impact any other anticipated savings. So on that note, Andrew, I don't know if you have the count of how many were tendered and how many have been already awarded and what we have left. But you could try to capture that as.
And you can email it to us if you.
Sure.
You
Okay.
I can give you a high level now and then follow up with
Yes.
some more details.
That'd be great. Okay.
So we've probably got about 80% of our program at least posted, if not closed, and in the award process.
80%.
About that.
Okay.
There's only about 5 or 6 left to close.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Jim said, like we do provide some information to industry just to give them a heads up in terms of what to anticipate the high level cost for each tender is going to be, so they can plan accordingly and figure out which contracts that they want to go after. But that's our engineer's estimate. That's not necessarily the budget for the project.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there is a difference when we establish the budgets for the program. That's done at a very high level, very early on. That changes over time as we get into the design work. We do our assessments for pavements, determine what work we need to do for street lighting, AT, a number of other aspects, surprises that come up. And so there is maybe a bit of a misunderstanding that the numbers that are provided to industry reflect our budget. That's not the case. No. So we also incorporate budgets from other groups. We coordinate with Water and Waste to do water mains when it makes sense to do them, sewer repairs. Oftentimes we get supportive funding for AT. We also support transit when in constructing new bus stops and other infrastructure. So it's a very involved accounting process establishing where we sit with.
So
I think you guys need to do a better job of communicating this to the industry.
So just the industry knows this. Okay, so here we go back to the award of contract for the 2026 that you just approved this morning on page 4. It gives you an idea
Right.
of what the project costs are. So hopefully you read it and you know well, because it facilitates what Andrew's saying. So the construction tender itself has a certain budget. The estimated project costs are just that. So an industry is full well and aware of that. What they're saying is that, oh, there must be money savings because somehow I saw the engineer's estimate and it said $12 million, for example, or for the construction, and it's 11,920. Okay, there's 80,000. Well, that's going to get chewed up in a heartbeat, right?
Right.
But look at the distribution on this project for the additional costs that sit in the overall budget. And that's the difference. And the other thing is that, demonstrating contingencies publicly is not a good idea, in my opinion. I've said that internally many times. But that's the way we're set up. If we go $1 over this project, we've got to come back to committee for approval. And that's our over expenditure process. So we're embedding risk in our process, which is what every agency does, to make that function. But with our process here, we do carry some risk. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more than standard based on the complexity of the project. But this is kind of what you're looking at.
This is a good example. So
Yeah.
this was tendered. What was the estimated project cost for this?
So this one was a bit more involved because it's a multi-year project. So we had funding for this is three streets out of a package that's actually 6 or 7.
Got it.
So there was an overall budget established for all the streets.
Package.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
this is a portion.
Okay, but I still think that you should be able to provide the list of the estimate, what your estimates were when you tendered them, when you put them out, the RFPs, right? Right?
That's not the project,
That's not,
No,
that's
it's
not the
not.
valuable information for a decision.
no,
But it's bundled, right? Like you put,
no, no, the project cost, that's the construction tender. The rest of this, that's outside of that.
okay, so let's just, so when you post things on Mercs.
There is no agency out there in the world that would do that.
No, you're not getting what I'm
Okay.
asking. You post things on Mercs, you
Yeah.
post something on Mercs.
Yeah.
This is the estimated budget.
No, we don't see the estimated budget for the contractor to bid on and that. That's no.
You don't say that?
No, that's a contracted, yeah, that's internal. You don't publish that.
Okay, so then.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, is this conversation better taken offline? We have another.
Oh, I'd like to hear it
We
publicly.
have, it's good that we have
There's
it on.
another committee coming up that I'm on, so I'm.
Yeah, well, you wanted to
Yeah,
leave at
another meeting.
12:30, so we're only at 11.
Well, they moved the meeting up. a little bit.
Yeah, I
Go
got it.
ahead, go ahead. No, they did. Check, why are you looking at me like that? Gosh,
Well, you can go.
okay, I know, I'm just letting you know that.
You're gonna lose forum, I gotta go.
But yes, I got moved
Okay, there.
up, just letting you know,
Fine.
and but I can keep, you can keep.
All
going
right,
with
we
it.
can wind up the meeting and we'll continue on the conversation.
So we'll receive this as information.
Sure, we'll receive this verbal update as information.
And who's the mover of this motion?
I guess I was. Or no, I can't be, maybe Council Chambers.
Take the chair, thank you.
Okay,
All those in
Favor?
favor of receiving this as
Yeah.
information?
Thank you.
well, where are you going? I'm still gonna finish this off.
What?
All right, you gonna finish talk?
Oh, I thought you were.
We're off.
We just did, we just voted.
Oh, yeah.
One wants to talk